On January 23rd, Ferrari unveiled the SF-26, the Scuderia's 72nd Formula One car at Fiorano circuit in Italy. But it wasn't the glossy red livery or the brighter Rosso Scuderia paint that caught the paddock's attention. It was the radical engineering philosophy underpinning this machine that immediately raised questions about whether Ferrari had finally cracked the code to end their 18-year Constructors' Championship drought. After just 2 days of testing at the Barcelona shakedown, running 121 laps with 0 major issues reported, the team is projecting a confidence we haven't seen in years. But the real story isn't about the hype. It's about what those engineering choices actually mean for the 2026 season and beyond. For Ferrari, 2025 was a nightmare. 4th in the Constructors' Championship, a season of struggle, misunderstanding, and strategic miscalculation. The SF-25 was a car that never quite worked, never quite delivered, and left. The entire organization searching for answers. When the FIA announced the 2026 regulations, a complete reset of the power unit architecture, the removal of the MGU-H, the introduction of active aerodynamics, and a fundamental shift in how energy is managed, Ferrari saw an opportunity. This wasn't just a new season. This was a chance to start from scratch. And that's exactly what they did. The central question is this: has Ferrari genuinely solved the fundamental problems that plagued them in 2025, or are they simply hoping that a radical redesign will mask deeper organizational issues? To answer that, we need to look closely at what they've actually engineered, starting with the power unit itself. The 2026 power unit regulations represent the most significant change to Formula One's hybrid architecture in over a decade. Gone is the MGU-H, the motor generator unit that harvested energy from the turbocharger. In its place, the FIA has mandated a single MGU-K, the motor generator unit attached to the crankshaft, but with a crucial difference. The electrical power output has been boosted to 350 kilowatts. That's a massive increase. To put this in perspective, in 2024 and 2025, the MGU-K was limited to 160 kilowatts. Ferrari is now working with more than double that electrical contribution. This fundamentally changes how the car behaves, how the driver manages energy, and how the team develops strategy. The engineering challenge here is immense. With 350 kilowatts of electrical power available, the battery system becomes the critical bottleneck. The battery must be able to store enough energy during braking and coasting phases to deliver that power on demand. It must be able to discharge at extreme rates without degrading, and it must be light enough that it doesn't compromise the car's weight distribution or center of gravity. According to Ferrari's own technical statement, they've redesigned the entire electrical architecture around a new battery pack with significantly improved energy density. The V6 engine itself remains a 90-degree configuration, but the bore and stroke have been adjusted to 380mm bore and 53mm stroke, optimized for the new power delivery profile. Direct injection operates up to 350 bar, and the maximum fuel energy is capped at 3,000 megajoules per hour. What this means in practical terms is that Ferrari has essentially built a new power unit from the ground up, one that is fundamentally different from anything they've run before. But here's where it gets interesting. The power unit is only half the story. The real innovation lies in how Ferrari has integrated this new hybrid system with the chassis and aerodynamic package. Under the 2026 regulations, ground effect aerodynamics have been abandoned. The cars are smaller, lighter, and more efficient. The focus has shifted from generating maximum downforce to generating downforce efficiently, with active aerodynamics playing a crucial role. Ferrari's approach has been to build a chassis that is fundamentally stable and predictable, even as the aerodynamic load changes dynamically. Look at the front wing. Unlike the more conventional designs we've seen from some rivals, Ferrari has opted for a 4-element configuration with an aggressive scalloped section on the main plane. The goal is to create a powerful outwash effect, directing turbulent air away from the front tyres and cleaning up the flow to the underfloor. The nose tip connects much lower and further forward than on the SF-25, a philosophy aimed at accelerating the airflow underneath the chassis. However, this comes with a risk. According to Article 3.4.2 of the technical regulations, the curvature of this section is tightly controlled. It appears Ferrari is operating right on the edge of what's legal. Some rivals are already watching this closely, wondering if a protest might be forthcoming. The real genius, though, might be in the rear suspension. Ferrari has returned to a pushrod configuration, but the key is the geometry of the upper wishbone. It's mounted unusually high on the gearbox casing, a clear attempt to maximize the anti-squat characteristics under acceleration. Anti-squat is a suspension geometry metric that resists the car's tendency to squat down at the rear under hard acceleration. By keeping the rear ride height stable, Ferrari keeps the diffuser working consistently, preventing the aerodynamic stalling that plagued them last season. It's a complex mechanical solution to an aerodynamic problem, and it represents a fundamental shift in how Ferrari thinks about chassis design. The side pods tell another story. Ferrari has gone for a relatively conventional approach compared to some of their rivals. The side pods are moderately sized, suggesting a more conservative approach to engine cooling. This is a deliberate trade-off. By accepting slightly higher cooling requirements, Ferrari has gained packaging flexibility elsewhere on the car. The engine cover is tighter, the rear wing is more compact, and the overall aerodynamic profile is cleaner. This philosophy suggests Ferrari is prioritizing reliability and consistency over the absolute maximum performance on a single lap. Now let's put this into competitive context, because this is where the story gets really interesting. Ferrari's main rival in the development war is Mercedes. The W17, which Mercedes revealed earlier in January, represents a completely different engineering philosophy. Where Ferrari has focused on mechanical stability and conservative cooling, Mercedes has gone for aggressive aerodynamic efficiency. The Mercedes side pods are extremely tight, a zero-pod design that sacrifices cooling margin for aerodynamic gain. The front wing is more aggressive, with sharper angles and tighter tolerances. Mercedes is essentially betting that they can manage the thermal challenges and that the aerodynamic advantage will outweigh any reliability risks. This is a classic Formula One strategic divergence. We've seen this pattern before. In 2024, Mercedes' aggressive approach ultimately won out over the second half of the season, as they understood the new regulations faster than their rivals. But 2026 is different. The power unit regulations are so fundamentally new that no team has a massive advantage in understanding them yet. Ferrari's more conservative approach might actually be the smarter play. By building a car that is more forgiving, more predictable, and more reliable, they give themselves more opportunities to develop and improve throughout the season. Mercedes' aggressive approach might deliver performance early, but if there are fundamental flaws in their thermal management or their aerodynamic philosophy, they could find themselves in trouble mid-season. Red Bull, meanwhile, has taken a middle path. Their new power unit, developed in partnership with Ford, is a radical departure from their previous Honda partnership. The team has been relatively quiet about the technical details, but from what we've seen in testing, they're focusing on a balanced approach that tries to extract maximum performance from the new MG UK without taking excessive risks on reliability. Aston Martin and McLaren are both using Mercedes power units, which means they're somewhat locked into the Mercedes aerodynamic philosophy, at least in terms of how the power unit integrates with the chassis. This brings us to what Ferrari has actually demonstrated in the first 2 days of testing at Barcelona. On January 26th, Ferrari skipped day one of the Barcelona shakedown entirely. This was a strategic decision. Rather than running a quick shakedown lap and gathering basic data, they chose to wait until day two, when they could run a more comprehensive test program. On January 27th, Ferrari completed 121 laps. To put that in perspective, that's equivalent to around 2 race distances at a typical Grand Prix circuit. The fact that they completed this mileage with no major issues reported is significant. It suggests the new power unit is reliable, the chassis is stable, and the integration between the two is working as intended. Lewis Hamilton, driving the SF-26 for the first time at Fiorano on January 23rd, completed 5 laps in drizzly conditions. No issues reported. Charles Leclerc followed, also completing several laps without incident. The initial feedback from both drivers was cautiously optimistic. Hamilton called it the biggest regulation change in his career. Leclerc emphasized the importance of energy management with the new MG UK system. Neither driver was effusive in their praise, which is actually a good sign. It suggests they're being realistic about the challenges ahead, rather than caught up in pre-season hype. Our resident F1 technical expert Gary Anderson offered a measured assessment after seeing the SF-26 in action. He called the car neat and tidy, but noted that there wasn't much there to leave him wide-eyed. In other words, Ferrari hasn't revealed any obvious silver bullets. What they have done is build a solid, well-engineered car that appears to be reliable and predictable. Anderson also highlighted the suspension geometry as the most interesting aspect, particularly the high-mounted upper wishbone and the overall approach to managing aerodynamic load through mechanical means. Team principal Fred Vasseur has been characteristically measured in his commentary. He called the SF-26 a brave but necessary step, adding that you cannot win in Formula One by copying.
This is a subtle dig at rivals who might be taking more incremental approaches to the new regulations. Vasseur also emphasized that developing the SF-26 required adapting to a completely new regulatory framework, and that efficiency and the
integration of features like active aerodynamics are crucial. This suggests Ferrari is thinking long-term, not just about the first race, but about how the car will evolve throughout the season. The implications of Ferrari's approach extend far beyond the first race. If the SF-26 proves to be a genuine competitive weapon, it will force rivals into a difficult position. Under the current budget cap, a mid-season pivot to copy Ferrari's design philosophy would be incredibly costly, potentially compromising development plans for 2027. This is why Mercedes, Red Bull, and other top teams will be watching Ferrari's performance data from the first few races so closely. The opening races of the 2026 season will essentially be a validation period for each team's fundamental design philosophy. Furthermore, Ferrari has essentially locked themselves into this development path. If fundamental flaws emerge, if the conservative cooling approach proves inadequate at hotter circuits, if the mechanical anti-squat solution doesn't deliver the expected performance gains, if the power unit integration has hidden issues, they won't have the resources for a complete redesign. This makes the first 3 races of the season, starting with Australia on March 8th, absolutely critical. We are not just watching a new car, we are watching a high-stakes strategic gamble that could define the next 2 years of the championship. The 2026 season opener in Australia will be particularly revealing. Melbourne is a circuit with moderate thermal demands, which should suit Ferrari's conservative cooling philosophy. If they can qualify on the front row and run competitively throughout the race, it will validate their approach. If they struggle with thermal management or if the power unit integration proves problematic, it will raise serious questions about whether they've made the right strategic choices. There's also the question of driver performance. Lewis Hamilton is a 7-time world champion with a proven track record of extracting maximum performance from new cars. Charles Leclerc is a talented driver who has shown he can adapt to new machinery quickly. If Ferrari has built a car that is genuinely competitive, these 2 drivers should be able to demonstrate that immediately. Conversely, if the car has fundamental issues, even Hamilton and Leclerc won't be able to hide them. The energy management aspect of the 2026 regulations is something that will evolve significantly throughout the season. With 350 kilowatts of electrical power available, the strategic possibilities are enormous. Different teams will develop different philosophies about when to deploy the power, how to manage battery state of charge, and how to integrate electrical power delivery with mechanical grip. Ferrari's conservative approach to cooling suggests they're prioritizing consistency and reliability over maximum peak power delivery. This could be a strength if it allows them to run the power unit at full power more consistently throughout a race. It could be a weakness if rivals develop more aggressive power delivery strategies that give them an advantage in specific scenarios. Looking at the broader context, Ferrari's 2026 strategy represents a fundamental shift in how the Scuderia approaches car development. For years, Ferrari has been chasing maximum performance in isolation, often at the expense of reliability and consistency. The SF-26 suggests a more holistic approach, one that balances performance with reliability, innovation with caution, and ambition with pragmatism. Whether this approach will deliver a Constructors' Championship for the first time since 2008 remains to be seen. But the initial signs are encouraging. The 121 laps completed at Barcelona without major issues is a strong statement. It suggests the new power unit is fundamentally sound, the chassis is stable, and the integration is working. It also suggests Ferrari's engineers have done their homework and understood the new regulations better than we might have expected. The fact that they skipped day 1 of testing and then ran a comprehensive program on day 2 shows strategic thinking and confidence in their preparation. But here's the critical caveat. Pre-season testing is not a race. The conditions are controlled, the tyre strategies are experimental, and the fuel loads are often lighter than race conditions. The real test will come in Australia, when Ferrari has to qualify on a single lap, manage tyre degradation over a race distance, and execute a strategy against competitors who are also pushing hard. That's when we'll truly know whether the SF-26 is a genuine championship contender or just a well-engineered car that looks impressive in testing. The 2026 season is shaping up to be one of the most unpredictable in recent memory. With new power units, new aerodynamic regulations, and active aerodynamics for the first time, no team has a massive advantage in understanding the new rules. Ferrari's approach of building a stable, reliable, and efficient car is a reasonable strategy in this environment. But so is Mercedes' aggressive approach, and so is Red Bull's balanced philosophy. The season will be decided not just by which team built the best car, but by which team best understands how to develop and optimize that car throughout the season. So to answer our central question, is Ferrari's SF-26 a genuine championship contender? The initial data suggests it's a potent weapon, but one that comes with significant risks and a steep learning curve. It's a bold statement of intent, but its success is far from guaranteed. The engineering is sound, the approach is thoughtful, and the reliability data is encouraging. But Formula One has a way of humbling even the most carefully laid plans. This technical battle is just beginning, and it will evolve with every race weekend. To get the deepest, most informed analysis on how this story unfolds throughout the 2026 season, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Our goal is to bring 50,000 of us together for the most intelligent F1 conversation on the platform. So what's your verdict on the SF-26? A stroke of genius or a dead end? Let me know your analysis in the comments below.